Hey class, welcome to chapter 13, section 1, Moving Westward. Americans are beginning to move west beyond the Mississippi River. This desire and want to move west is called manifest destiny. Manifest destiny is the belief that many Americans had that God had intended for America to have all of the western land all the way to the Pacific Ocean. A lot of Americans believed that that was God's purpose for us and a belief that we should have that land all the way to the Pacific Ocean. And there are a number of reasons why Americans wanted to move west. One reason was simply the mood of the day. The mood of the day encouraged people to go west. Americans believed the land to the west was theirs to claim, and they should go and get it. Go get it. President James K. Polk encouraged expansion. He talked about it a lot, and people willingly followed his lead. A second motive was lure of the land, the lure. The West was an irresistible attraction to American farmers. Planters that had depleted the soil on the east were looking for new, rich, thick soil west of the Mississippi River. A lot of poor farmers who couldn't own much land or who had been forced to work for other people could now afford plots of land to the west. So the lure of the land, the soil itself, was a major draw for many Americans. A third motive for many Americans was a desire for wealth. There was a lot of money available to the West, whether it was farmland, the new crops, but for many of them it came in the form of a mineral, like gold in California, silver in Nevada and Colorado, and business ventures. Most people moving west were seeking wealth in some form or another. A fourth reason people began to move west was for the adventure or a new start. Some just wanted to see what was out there, and they were adventurous people and wanted to see what the world had in store. Others, a new beginning. Maybe they had made some poor choices in their past, and they wanted to begin with a brand new, clean slate. And so they wanted to go out and see this new land. So a lot of folks were drawn for those reasons. So mood of the day, lure of the land, a desire for wealth, adventure, or new start were four of the reasons that people began to move west. A fifth and final reason were for religious reasons. A number of people moving west were looking for opportunities to share the gospel with maybe Indians who lived out there, or maybe for settlers who were living out there, looking for a way to spread the gospel. And then some groups were looking for religious freedom. We'll see the Mormons are going to move west, trying to escape some persecution. So a wide variety of reasons that sent people west during this manifest destiny, during the 1830s and 1840s, sending Americans west. The very first trail that was used at this time is called the Santa Fe Trail. The Santa Fe Trail. The Santa Fe Trail was primarily used for trade. If you see here, here's Independence, Missouri. Here's St. Louis. The Mississippi River comes through here. And the Santa Fe Trail would go down to, that's right, Santa Fe. At this time in history, Santa Fe is part of Mexico. The Santa Fe Trail is the first route west of the Missouri River, again, primarily used as a trade route. And when the settlers would go or traders would go, they would typically leave in large groups as they would go. They'd go in large groups for safety reasons. And they'd probably gather once a year and make their way to that region. Now, this trail would also be used for transporting goods and soldiers during the Mexican-American War in a little bit. But initially, first trail west of the Mississippi River and primarily used for trade reasons. This area to the west is pretty unique for a few reasons. if you look at this map here, this whole area that I'm going around, this is all part of Mexico at this time in history. So all of Texas is also a part of Mexico. Well, when Mexico claimed independence in 1821 from Spain, if you recall, Texas was a part of them. It's not Texas, it's just part of Mexico. Well, a man named Moses Austin, pictured down here, Moses Austin says to Mexico, "Hey, Mexico, could I bring 300 families into Texas, into this area right in here, 300 American families into Texas?" And Mexico says, fine, bring them in. And they were each given 640 acres at a very low cost. Mexico thought this would be good for them because it brought some people into the area. And it's good to have your land settled. And so they began to move in, and people kept coming and coming in. And by the end of the 1820s, there are 30,000 Americans living in Texas as Mexican citizens. Now, Mexico again thought they would help to kind of tame the Indians. They thought they would quickly assimilate or blend into Mexican culture. Well, that didn't happen. And so these 30,000 Americans now living in Mexico, and now some dispute begins. Right? There's some dispute between the groups. And so by 1830, Mexico says no more Americans may come into Mexico. Our border here is closed. You've got to stay out. Well, by 1833, Moses Austin's son, Stephen F. Austin, he is going to travel down to Mexico City. And in Mexico City, he says, hey, Mexico, could we break free? Could we break free and join the United States, basically? Well, of course, Mexico says no. They're going to put Stephen Austin into jail for 18 months. Well, when he had left, he had told his advisors, hey, if something happens to me, I get jailed or imprisoned or killed, then you need to break free from them. Well, Mexico, of course, sends troops up here to prevent that from taking place. And there are a number of key battles, including one of the most famous losses in American history at the Alamo. The Battle of the Alamo. We're going to lose that battle. But that battle becomes a rallying cry. Remember the Alamo became the rallying cry. And finally, after a couple of years, behind the efforts of men like Davy Crockett and Jim Bowie and Sam Houston, Texas gained independence from Mexico. So the year is 1836. Mexico has lost Texas. They've now become an independent nation, and Texas applies to become a state in 1836. America says no. Why do we tell them no? Well, we tell them no because we know that if we add Texas, then Mexico will declare war on us. And we don't want to go to war with anybody. So for 9 years, Texas, the Lone Star State, because they stood alone, the Lone Star State is waiting for the United States to annex them or to add them. It's not going to be until 1844, when James K. Polk becomes president, they're finally going to add them, actually the next year in 45. So for 9 years to stand alone, from 36 to 45. And there's more trouble brewing, of course. But a lot going on here. Americans, manifest destiny, this belief that we are to inherit all of the land to the West Coast.